The world of theater is full of stars. But just like in the night sky, sometimes we don't see them all. Some are in the wings, some are maybe up over us in the catwalk. Hopefully they're not under the stage, but you never know. In this series, we are going to meet those hidden stars of the theater, hear their stories, and be inspired by them. So join me on this journey here in my state-of-the-art production studio in my backyard as we meet the hidden stars of theater. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my camper, and welcome back to the Hidden Stars of Theater. It is great to have you today. As always, it's your host, Jamie Davis, right here in hanging out in the old 1975 Terry travel trailer, just having a great time. But it's going to be a better time because we're about to be joined by somebody that you're going to love. His name is Mr. Mark Rivet. He is an audio technician, and he is so much more than that. And he's got so much wisdom. Mark, welcome to the show. Welcome to my camper. Great to have you today, man.
Great to be here.
Awesome. And he's been on a lot of different shows and just has a lot of great things he's going to share with us today. One of them is a little show that he's working on now. I can't remember the name of it. Help me, Mark. What do you?
It's a show about a revolution. You know, you've heard of it.
Did you say you want a revolution?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that it? Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's Act 2.
That's Act 2, or the unwritten Act 3.
It's the unwritten Act 3. Exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
The super cut at the end of the show that you know.
That's right. No, we're joking. He's in He's not in Hamilton, but he is one of the supreme audio engineers associated with a tour of Hamilton, one of the 500 tours happening around the world right now, or something like that.
Coming to a city near you.
That's right. Absolutely. If it hasn't already, it will soon. And you should see it when it does, because it's amazing. And if Mark happens to be there, you should go up and say hey.
Yeah, always come say hey.
For sure. Well, that is a part of who he is, but it does not define all of him. And so we want to get deeper. We want to find some dirt. We want to just find out what it was that really, really makes Mark who he is and has inspired him to rise to the top, man. You're part of the cream at the top of the barrel here. And we want to find out how, because, some of us, I got nothing else to do. Maybe I want to jump in and be mixing Hamilton next year. And you never know. Don't laugh at me, man. You never know. Stranger things have happened.
Stranger things.
There you go. Yeah.
Stranger things are happening.
They are happening right now. But we want to know what it is that it takes to really excel at what you do. And so you're our star for the day, and you're truly a star. And I know after people watch this interview, they're going to agree with me that you are truly a star. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to you, Mr. Mark Rivet. The stage is yours. And just start from the beginning. Tell us the people, the places, the things that have molded you into the superstar that you are, sir. Please. And it's all you. It's all you.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Fullerton. I grew up. I went to a high school, in an arts magnet high school called Fullerton Union High School. We had an academy there. I did drama, band, choir all 4 years. I remember growing up, I grew up and I didn't have a great dad. And I remember always wanting the attention to be on me. And that was something that you could get obviously from theater and from band and from choir. And it was only when I started doing drama in high school that I realized that the only problem I had with theater was that I have horrible stage fright. I could never remember my lines. I shake uncontrollably on it. I never loved it.
Certain shows that might be appropriate, but probably a little bit of a hindrance to performing.
It turns out, and I know people always say, like, how do you get over the fright of being on stage? And they always ask actors that, and they always say, like, I'm still afraid. And I would say, like, you know what, I am more afraid than most. Like, I can't remember my own name on stage. Choir was great. You could be in a nice big group, but when you're on there all talking all by yourself, not my favorite thing.
Got you. And do you think, back you up here a little bit, because we're not going to let you get away from it. You mentioned your relationship with your dad was not the greatest growing up,
Yeah.
and do you think then that that desire to at least try theater, to the roar of the crowd, the applause, the acceptance that you get from that, right? Do you think that those were related?
I think definitely. I think, everybody wants to be
Yeah.
impressive at some point. And growing up, me and my brother were pretty close in age. My brother was the bigger. I think he was 18 months older than me, and or maybe 21. And my growing up, we always wanted the same things. I always wanted to do whatever my brother did, and every time we would do it, my dad had a little more faith that my brother would be good at it, so he would get him. I remember when we were kids, both me and my brother asked for like toolkits because we wanted to be like dad, because my dad owned a shop in back east, and we wanted toolkits. And my dad got my brother this like really great, like 100-piece toolkit with like every wrench and socket you could possibly imagine. And he got me like a hammer and nails, because he was like, "You're not. It's not. Whatever he's gonna make, it's not gonna be very good. So we don't want
Yeah.
to invest that much money
We don't
into
want
it."
to waste the money on Mark.
Yeah. And so like kind of growing up, like I grew up with the thought of, always being not good enough to do some things. I would never be good enough to do anything technical. And so the arts I was pretty good at. I was a good singer, and I was a fairly decent actor, and I could play some instruments in a band well enough that people wanted to come see it. And so I liked that. And but you can never really get over, like, I never went as a kid, never thought I wanted to perform for a living, because I was terrified. I was like, there's no way I could get over this feeling. But I still wanted to be impressive. I wanted to prove to people that I could do things. And I'm not saying you can't be impressive in an office building, or you can't be impressive in a courtroom or something like that. But you're not given the same kind of freedom of expression daily as you are in the arts. That's what I think is so great about the arts. The freedom to express yourself. In drama, I had an incredible drama teacher in high school who never made enough money for whatever she made was not enough. And
So, as a new drama teacher myself, can you repeat that, please? Because I think that's a great point for people to understand.
I think every starting pay for any teacher should be in the six figures. Absolutely. Because
such a wise man, such a wise man.
Honestly, that my drama teacher was the reason that I graduated high school. I was like obviously having a rough childhood, had a rough time in school, and I think it was like 3 credits short from graduating, and they found out late. She actually ran my transcripts, found them, or I think a coach did, and found them and was like, "You're going to be 3 credits short. You're not going to graduate."
Oh no!
And she went to our principals or superintendent or whoever she had to go to and said, this kid's been out after school every day doing theater, doing the fall drama, doing the spring musical. We should give him 3 elective credits for this, because he's worked so hard. And they did, and I graduated because of it.
That's awesome. Good on her.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And she was someone who understood, like, hard work is hard work, and she fostered that in me. She was the one who came to me and wanted me to do the fall drama. And I thought I did a decent job. I would say that now I'm much better at what I do now than I was then doing that. But when we were growing up in high school, we had to do the performance days, and I was always the guy that wanted to do the sound for performance days. I wanted to run the soundboard, run the hanging mics, run the playback. And the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it. And I loved everything about it. And then I got a job being an usher in our like attached auditorium, a district auditorium. And I remember, like, it was I think it was the first show I ever worked. We would normally get traded out every 30 minutes so that you weren't standing up for longer than 30 minutes. And I remember never wanting to get traded out, because all I wanted to do was watch the show. And the first show I watched was Jekyll and Hyde with T. Eric Hart. It was such a great show.
Yeah.
And that show, I mean, just watching everything going on, it was the flashing lights, super loud sound, pyrotechnics, singing, the orchestration. And it was just like an incredible moment. I was like, this is what I have to do this like as a living. This is the greatest thing.
Was that a regional, kind of a regional theater situation?
Yeah, it was back when we had a Civic Light Opera, Fullerton Civic Light Opera, and they would put that show on. And years later, they did it again. Like probably 6-7 years later, they did it again. And I got to work that show. And I remember it being like such an incredible moment of like, this is the show that made me get into theater, and now I get to actually like work on it and be a part of it. And
that's cool.
I remember one time, got like during when we were, I think, building the show, and the lead actor walked in, T. Ericard walked in, and I said, "Oh my God, you're T. Ericard," and it was like a kind of a cool moment, that I got to say hi to him and say like, you're the reason I'm in theater, like you're the reason I'm here right now.
He's like, yes, I am.
Yeah, he's a good spectacular actor. I think he still acts. I'm pretty sure he still does. So if you see his name on a program, go see that show, because it's going to be amazing.
Awesome.
But yeah, and I knew I always wanted to be impressive, and I wanted to do impressive things. And so theater because it has so much opportunity to do that, I tried other things. I tried business school. I tried, broadcast, and I never really liked any of it. I actually really thought for a while I wanted to be a lawyer. And I just didn't, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't imagine myself wanting to get out of bed for that,
Right. Yeah.
And now I'm lucky enough to travel the world and do theater everywhere. Like I've been every 50 state, or all 50 states. I've done it in places I would never be able to afford to go to before that.
That's awesome. And how old are you now?
35. I just turned 35 last week.
Yeah, that's cool. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it gave me an opportunity to grow as a person, grow as an artist, and understand, like, the more that I've done and the more shows that I've done, the more I've realized that theater is important, because it teaches you a lot of the lessons that you've learned through the arts, and you don't even realize it. Like,
right.
I kind of want to count how many people know what they know about the American executive branch from The West Wing.
Yeah, or from Schoolhouse Rocks. But when I was a kid, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. I mean, honestly, exactly. I don't remember studying much civics in school, but I still remember Saturday morning singing along with Schoolhouse Rocks.
Right. And so when you look at something like Hamilton, I love this show because I love that people are as excited about it as they can be. And the people that are excited about it, I love on Instagram, looking at any fan accounts of Hamilton fan accounts. They're amazing, and they also know everything.
Right.
There's this one account that I was kind of flipping through, and she mentions that, of course, of course, Mariah Reynolds knows about the letter. She's in on the whole blackmail scheme.
Yes.
And it doesn't like explicitly say it in the show, but her logic is pretty sound logic. She says, one of the lines is, "Stop crying, goddammit. I don't know about any letter," is what she says. And the girl goes, "He didn't mention a letter." And I was like, oh wow, this girl, yeah, she's got it wrapped up. She figured it out.
That's awesome. True.
And it makes people, the show makes people want to look it up. They want to make sure it's right. I love when people go, George Washington's cat was never named Hamilton. And they're like, well, it's a line from a musical, man. But I'm glad that you did the research and looked it up to see if that was true, because that's pretty cool.
Absolutely right.
And so you do get people that are better Americans because of a show like Hamilton. I'm not saying everybody is, but I'm saying some people become more interested in it. We have this great thing on Hamilton, which I think has probably become, my favorite thing I've ever done. And I think it's a thing that every show should think about doing.
Okay.
and we have this thing we call the edge of ham,
Oh, absolutely.
and
I'm very familiar
I
with that. Yeah.
are very familiar with it. It is a thing I get up early for. Every time we do it, we have to be in at 8 a.m. To start it, and it takes all day because we usually do a double that day. So we're there from 8 a.m. till 11 o'clock at night, and it's the only day you won't hear me complain about getting up at 8 a.m. because you get there, and the way it works is kind of cool because the the group that helps us put it on has done this kind of assigned curriculum for the students, and they have to kind of learn about all these the American Revolution topics, and they have to kind of write some original performance pieces, and they perform them on stage. They get to perform them, and some of them are kind of interesting. You get a lot of people with doing original raps to the music of the Fresh Prince theme song.
Oh yeah.
That's a big one. It's I'm a big fan of it every time it comes on.
That's huge.
But some of them are these original poems written from kids that are. I mean, I wish I had half the understanding of the human experience as these kids did, and they're 16. Some of these kids. They're also incredibly brave because they're on stage by themselves, and it's one thing to be on stage and look at a group of adults who aren't allowed to boo you.
Right.
They might, but they probably won't. These kids go out in front of a group of people their age who don't know them, and that would be the most terrifying thing in the world to me.
Oh yeah.
And so these kids are exceptionally brave, exceptionally talented, so bright. I talked to all of them backstage. I get to kind of have a little spiel with them about how to use a wireless mic. And and watching the show, I'm almost every single city I have been blown away by somebody and said, like, if someone hasn't already talked to you about getting representation, you should, because you're very good. And it has become one of the greatest things. And then the kids get to watch they get to watch their own private performance of the show. And cool. That show has a decibel level of, like, a bass decibel level that's kind of always going. It's like a 93, 94, or it's just like a light fan of them just kind of buzzing in their seats. And they always scream whenever anyone says a swear word. It's my favorite thing. It's great. But you get to watch these kids experience such a brilliant musical for the first time. I mean, they've heard the soundtrack, they've watched the bootleg video of it, and this is their chance to get to see it for the first time live. And it is
one of those shows that live is just incredible. I've got to see it live one time on Broadway. It's just life-changing almost. It's incredible.
Yeah. And people say, like, are you worried that you're not going to have a job when you come back because they're going to put it on Disney Plus? And I actually tell them, I'm like, no, because the minute you see it live, you're going to want to see it again.
Absolutely.
If anything, it's just a great trailer to go see it live. And that is one of those experiences that when you get to work with high school kids. Originally, I worked in a theater for about 10 years. And I started as an usher, and then I became a stagehand and slowly worked my way up to being the head of the sound department at the theater. And working with high school students was always the most rewarding thing, because high school students are smarter than people give them credit for, and don't have the shackles of being that worried about what people will think of them, because a lot of them don't really know what to think of themselves either. They're weird kids. They dress weird. They just want to do something different. And so you can give them the paints, and they'll paint something incredible because no one has told them how they have to paint yet. And so when we would always have like a student design the musical, and I would just be there to help him figure it out and how to do it. Yeah. And some of these kids would come to you with great ideas, and those kids, now I've seen a couple of them now they work in the industry, and they're great. And they go on to become fantastic artists and fantastic engineers, because they got to they got to flex those muscles in high school and really show people, and more to the point, show themselves, I am capable of something incredible.
Right.
I just needed to be able to show it to. I think the house held 1,200 people, so like they got to show it to a house of 1,200 people potentially.
Yeah.
And
I think you touched on an important thing that I always urge students that I work with, and that is don't, we say all the time, don't think outside the box, right? And what I encourage them to do is just forget that there is a box, even.
right,
Because what you refer to is, as adults, we tend to live within parameters that we're taught as we grow, and the kids haven't learned the parameters yet. Well, sometimes those parameters can be, there's somebody else's, right? Who says that you can't do this? Who says that you can't do it another way? And I know when I'm doing scenic design for a set, one of the things that annoys me is when a director says, well, this is my original vision, but I know we can't do that. What? Don't tell me what I can't do. Share with me your vision, and then let me take my vision, and then I'll tell you this is capable or not. But don't start by limiting me, because that limits the creative process, and we may come up with something totally different through that process, but let's at least have the process. And yeah, you're right. Kids are uninhibited in that. And it's much fun to work with them and see these original thoughts.
Right.
It's good.
And I, as a person, I have like ADHD, and
we all do.
Right. One of the things, I was like talking to a doctor about taking medication, and she's like, well, it'll everybody is a little bit better on amphetamines, of course. But you'll lose some of your out of the box thinking that people, and that's one of the kind of the side effects that people don't really think about when they give a kid medication for that, is that kids are full of out of the box thinking. There are people that they have not yet drawn conclusions and drawn connections to things in certain ways, where like you and I are going to build, we're going to build a flat. And so what do? We get 1x3 and a nail gun and some Luan, and we frame it out, and then we skin it, and then we put it up. And you ask a kid, like, we're going to build walls. And they go, okay, great. Like, how do we do that? Do we paper mache on chain link fence? And you go, yeah, should we do that? I don't understand why that's a bad idea. I mean, like, let's figure out why it's a bad idea first, but let's try that. Why not? Those kinds of thoughts are something that are fostered in theater that I think are not fostered elsewhere. When especially when you do things like sound, one of my favorite things is in movies, a lot of times people don't realize what isn't the sound that they're hearing. Right. The sound of a person walking through the snow in a movie is frequently a leather bag filled with cornstarch, and you're squeezing it because snow doesn't sound the way you want it to sound. Right. And so when you're a kid and you say, we're going to make a sword fight, how do you want to make all the sound effects? And they go, oh, can we bang like sheets of metal together and make those sounds? And you're like, absolutely, let's do that. We could do it with real swords and cut a hand off, or we can do it this way and it works. Yep. And so being able to let a kid, say, what is the sound of our spaceship? What does it sound like? Because you ask a seasoned sci-fi sound editor, and he's going to go, well, it has to have a bass rumble because every ship's going to have the jet engines right in the back, just brrr. And then we're going to have some beeps and some boops because you got to have some beeps and boops and a dot matrix printer and the sound of an ATM machine dispensing cash. And the kid's going to go like, what if it's just really quiet and sleek and see, you get that, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a laser sound. But that's the kind of stuff that I loved about theater. It gives you a freedom to be artistic in ways that you didn't really think about in a normal sense. The out of the box thinking serves you well in theater, and especially in sound. We have to rig our mics with every manner of thing under the sun, and using out of the box thinking gets you a road there that won't be the same road everybody else does. That never works. Before I came to Hamilton, I had never thought of making a custom ear rig like we make them. And there's videos of them. You can look at them online. There's one with Adam Savage. And that ear rig is completely custom and completely thought up like by someone was just like, what if we tried wire and we bent it into the shape we wanted and used fishing line to tie it on? I have never used fishing line to tie on anything ever in my life before this. And when I got on the show, I was like, that is a brilliant idea. I've always wanted to glue it. I've always wanted to use tape. I've never thought of using fishing line and essentially fly tying equipment to do it. And I tell people all the time, you know, the worst thing you can be in theater is unable to change and adapt. And in doing sound for theater, you have to adapt everything. Every good kit box is going to have 50 adapters in it, because you need some way. I know how to get, you know, SD video in and out of things with every manner of adapter, because you need to be able to. And people are the same way. We need to adapt how we do things. We need to adapt how we think of things. You know, now on Hamilton, I use fly tying thread because I was like, why can't we use this? Like, what? I'm trying to think of a reason why I can't. And I tried it out on one of them. It looked really clean. It was easy to color. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do all my mics this way. I'm never going to buy a custom rig again. I'm going to make them myself, because you can adapt
for all of the reasons that it works for fishing. I mean, all of the things that you need make a fishing lure or a fly are the same things you need to make the headset. And that's brilliant.
That's brilliant. It's Anna Lee Craig is the one who came up with that. We call him the ALC Special. And I will. And that is one of those things that I will always use now. And people that say, like, I have this weird guy and it can't get any this on him, and there's something about this, and I'm like, try this rig out, because you will be surprised by how good it sounds. On our show, I think it's the best sounding rigs. They're really clean and clear. They have some like weird qualities to them that require some futzing in board. And like they're very specific where you put them, but I think they yield such a great result. And, you know, Anna Lee's out of the box thinking is what made that. And without her doing that, the sound of Hamilton wouldn't be the same sound.
Yeah. And it, you know, it's just a great example of, you don't always have to go to an engineer or an engineering company and pay them, you know, $100,000 to design a mic that's going to work for Hamilton. Right. Sometimes it's the cheapest and the easiest, and just never. What I love about it, theater, is this: people who are really good at it are willing to try. Right. What if she hadn't been willing to try? She was willing to try this. I think I got an idea. Let's try it. Okay, let's try it. And it worked. Right. And that's it. That's the beauty of what we do. It's, let's take all of our life experiences and put them together and see what comes out. And and what comes out is art.
And I love touring specifically is like my favorite. I think I'm a far better sound engineer because I tour, because I get to meet people in new cities who teach me new things. And like one of the best examples of this is, and people are gonna be like, I can't believe you didn't know about this. There's this website called filmtools.com. And it's a great website. And if you need a fitting so you want to adapt a mic stand, you want to put a microphone on a window, this website will have all of the pieces and parts you need to get there. And I use it all the time. I go on it every time I'm like, I want to mount something weird. And I was in Detroit, and I was talking in Detroit. They have like a kind of a bigger film industry. And one of the stagehands used to work on a bunch of the films. He was working on like the Terminator or the Transformer movies and things like that. And I was telling him, I was like, you know, one of the most annoying things I have to do on my load-in is I have to mount 3 cameras on a balcony rail, and I have to mount them individually, each one on the rail, and then focus them. And they're all weird and they're crazy. And then it's just a nightmare. And I want to make a way to mount them together, but I don't know how to. I can't think of how to do it. And he was like, go to filmtools.com and look up this stuff called 5/8 speed rail. And it's like thin speed rail. So like normal speed rail in a movie set, the grips, and they use them all for like the dolly tracks, and they'll build framing out of them and things like that. And that's like I think it's 1¼ inch speed rail. It's cool stuff. It's like an adult director set.
Awesome.
And this 5/8 speed rail is just a mini version of that. And they come in every possible shape and size. And it's incredible. And I looked this website up, and I went to him later, and I was like, this is the greatest website ever. I cannot believe that
Uh-huh.
this has been a secret. I'm going here for everything that I need to find, every piece of everything I need to find. I'm coming to this website I'm looking for. And I still do. I still go on Film Tools and I look up their, Kupo fittings for mics and cameras. And I have all this weird kit bag of camera stuff because I use it to mount cameras in weird places and in weird ways. And I use it for mic placement all the time. I built on our on Hamilton, we have kind of a weird conductor camera setup, and it has to be like mounted on a weird way. And I went online, and we had this like mounted piece of Telspar or something, or like Unistrut, and it was just like huge and big and unwieldy. And I went on there, and for I think $100, I made a clamp to a piece of speed rail. It's exactly what we needed in the perfect size, all because I had been to Detroit and somebody was like, check out this website with these things. And so like touring the country, that's one of my favorite things about touring is you meet people, and you meet people with different skill sets, which I love. You meet people with different viewpoints. Like I didn't know this, and it made me kind of like look it up. When there's like people who do like demolition derby and things like that, and those guys know everything about a car, but they know everything about what makes a car drive and what doesn't. And so where you need to make the welds and where you need to make the cuts. Yeah. And those guys are the guys you talk to when you want to find out that if a car is safe to drive afterwards,
Right.
And that kind of mentality where you go to a new place and you meet new people and you go like, hey, how would you mount this? And they go like, here's the way everyone does it that you've always heard. And you go, oh, okay, great. That's the way I've always heard it. And then sometimes you go, hey, have you thought about how I could mount this? And they go, well, yeah, why don't you do this? And you think, of course. One of my favorite guys I've ever met is this guy, Kurt Ostra. I've done a couple shows with him now. He's now one of the prop guys on Hamilton. He's on the other tour, on the Phillip tour. And Kurt is one of those guys I go to every time I have a problem and I need it solved by a guy who knows how to cut things with metal, because I don't know how to cut things with metal. And I go to him and I say, Kurt, I got this idea, and how do you make it better? And Kurt's the guy who we started where we wanted to mount a TV special for our flymen, but we wanted it mounted over there's always a rail running along the fly rail. And it's like a piece of pipe, and they always have that in every house. And I was like, what I want something to hook to that, so it's real small and simple, and then be able to move the TV in any way I need to, up and down, left and right, spin it around, whatever I need. And he's like, great, we'll make this mount up. And we made version 1, and then I was like, oh, but I need it to tilt. And he goes, great, I figured it out. We'll do this for version 2. And now we've made these like 360 Visa mounts for TVs. And people come to me all the time and they're like, yeah, you have this. And you've ever heard anything like this? And I go, I tell you what, let me go to my box. I've got a 360 Visa mount that I can sell you. And it's a cool, like, if it weren't for knowing Kurt, I would never have this in my back pocket as a way to mount anything,
Right.
And that's the kind of people that you meet when you're touring is these guys that think outside the box and think uninhibitedly because they've been in art their whole life. When you work construction, you always do things the same way because you work the way the engineer told you. And when you're an engineer in theater, you have to think up a solution that is elegant, cheap, or cost effective, I should say, and does the job the way you need it to. And sometimes that will be a solution that requires you to change it every week, swap it out every week. Sometimes it's expensive, but it lasts forever. And only in theater do you get that way. And it's because when you work on a construction, when you're doing construction and you say, hey, in order for this to work the way we need it to, it's got to be 30 feet long. And in theater, you say, well, we can't make it 30 feet long. How do we do it? And they say, all right, we're going to do a bunch of pulleys and it's going to loop around. So it's still going to be 30 feet, but it's going to be 30 feet in a box that's only 10 feet long.
Right.
And that is brilliance to me. Like, that is true engineering. That is true invention, is these people that have been like, well, you know what? On this show, we did this weird thing.
Yeah.
And you get to learn that weird thing for yourself.
It's funny what you described there with you need the 30 feet of cable within a 6 foot. When I was in high school, I competed in this competition called Olympics of the Mind, and was on a team. We went to World Finals 4 years in a row, and one of them, my brother was on that with me, and we built a car that was powered by a 2-ton jack that could go 75 feet with one. We never had to reset the jack, and we did it that exact way. We put two boards with pulleys and ran this incredibly long cable wrapped around the tire. So as we moved an inch, it would move us like 10 feet because of the ratio. But it's exactly what you described there. And
Yeah.
that's it. You know, I've always said if there is a zombie apocalypse and I start building a team to survive, it's going to be stagehands, right?
100%. I'm the exact same way.
We might let an actor or two in just, you know, for some entertainment, but for survival, give me stagehands every time.
Right. And two, the part that I find so interesting is a stagehand will use old school techniques in a new
Yes.
way. One of our on Sound of Music, I was on Sound of Music with these two guys, Tim Buzza and Lou Riquelme, and both those guys, they would have they had these things they call rail dogs, and they were like a rolling pin rail, and they would use them to kind of throw over a line to slowly let it out if the line set was, or if the arbor was overweighted, so that they could add a little more weight to the line set as they slipped it out. And the two of them got the idea that when they were working on the out, they could help the flyman with the weight a lot more easily if they used a block and tackle system on that rail dog and then hook it to the pipe and then slowly, you know, bring it in with this you know, super long rope.
Right.
And it was a brilliant, elegant solution. These guys thought it up in a weekend, I think. They went and got the stuff they needed. They tried it out, one loadout. It worked like gangbusters. And then every single loadout, they just told the guy, when we hook it on, take all the weight off. And they would slowly, or whatever. I forgot how or leave it all on or whatever it was. And they figured it out, and they saved themselves an hour every loadout or something like that, just in waiting for guys to strip this weight. And I love it because they used an old technique. Block and tackles have been around, you know, on sailboats forever. And they figured out, you know, we can use it for this process too. And it didn't require us drilling any holes. It didn't take a bunch of time. They were just like, we're going to throw this sling over here, touch to here, pull this down. And that was the old school solution that could have been a chain motor, but didn't have to be because we couldn't afford a chain motor.
Absolutely. And would have taken you to had to order it. You know, you couldn't have just run out and gotten the pieces at Home Depot or wherever.
Right.
Because that's the other part. Not only are they good at it, but they're good at doing it quickly.
And always doing it safely. I mean, those guys, theater is one of those places that can be such a dangerous place. And luckily those guys figured out, you know, we can do this. We can make it safer. We can have more control over everything. And, which I love.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know Brian Judd. I know if you were able to watch his episode, but that's his whole story as well. And you know, when I think about when you need stuff on the fly, he even says that's what, because he started as a stagehand and started his company because of exactly what you had said. You know, you're always in these situations on tour that things pop up. Oh, I need this fixed, and he wanted to be that guy that people could call and fix. And it's you know, it's a whole community of people who love creative problem solving. And that's man, such a fun thing. It's like you mentioned director sets, right? I love director sets growing up. And how cool is it to always, I'm an adult, I still get to play with a much bigger, cooler director set, right? That's amazing. That's amazing.
And that's like that's the part of the fulfillment of my, you know, childhood of loving to play with Legos, and then growing up as an adult and going like, guys, I think I know how to make this. I think I know how we can do this. And I love one of my favorite things I used to always say in our theater, because when I grew up growing up in a cheap theater, which I always think is like something everyone should do. They should do their first tour should be a one-nighter tour. Their first theater, they should do it for cheap, because it teaches you to be thoughtful in everything that you're doing.
And cheap, not meaning that they're not going to pay you anything, although that may be the case. I think what you mean is, the world I live in, a community theater, let's build this beautiful set. Oh, we have no money.
Yeah, we had that experience so often, and we would try and figure out how to do things, and we couldn't go out and buy anything. We worked for a school district too, and school districts are notoriously bad for like purchasing things. You just don't, they don't give you the Amex card. You really gotta work for it to get it. And so because we couldn't just go out, yeah, because we couldn't go out and just buy things, we were like, all right, what do we have? And we're like, well, we have some rope, we have some tie line, we have some gaff, we have some pipe and some chain, and we need to make this happen. And how can we do that? And our bosses, one of our bosses, Evan Shirk, was the guy who was notoriously good for that. He would think up some incredible way to use the flats from last year, cut them up just the right way, and make a train out of it. And we did a show where we had to make it the front of a train, and I remember being like, you couldn't hire a company to make this for what we're making it for. You couldn't. And it looked beautiful, and we had this like big 3K light in the front of it, and it was like it was awesome. And these guys figured out how to do it. But my boss used to tell me one of his favorite things, I would say, is we would be trying to like mull through a problem, and I would always say the same thing. I would say, this is gonna sound crazy, but what if? And it was always something crazy, and I would come up with 10 fixes for something, and only one of them would work. But that one time is the one time you need. That's it. And that part of the gig is great. I love, how do we get this up there? Well, what if we bolt an eye bolt to the side of it, and we use that, and then someone goes over here and gets this in? Because when you're touring, that's your whole life. We had to put in our 3,000-pound towers in the house in Philadelphia. And our production sound guy, Nick Borschuk, is a very smart man, and our designers are very smart men, and they put their heads together and came up with a brilliant solution of doing a platform that we build it on. Then we take those longer legs off, put up lower legs on them, put the platform down, rehang it, and figured out exactly what size it needed to be, what shape it needed to be for us to be able to build it. And we got to do it. And those, in a normal construction job, in order to do it safely, you'd have to cut another hole somewhere in the ceiling, and we could not cut another hole. So we had to figure out a different way to do it, and do it fast, because we knew that we were going to open on, I think we opened on Tuesday. We still opened on Tuesday. And we're like, we have exactly this much time to get it all done. And this can't take any more time than it normally does. And they figured out the perfect way to do that. And that I think is such a cool part of what we do is, it's going to be different. It's going to be harder. It's going to be easier some days. And it's figuring out how to make everything work, because you're going to have a show on Friday. So how do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great transitionary statement to something that you and I've talked about before, that I want you to share your thoughts with our listeners on, because I love them. And that is the whole concept of, how do you balance making art with practical problems like that, right? That's a practical problem. That doesn't really, it does have to do with making the art, but it's not the lofty goal of, we want, we want this big artistic flourish. No, we got to get these up. How are we going to do it? Because you don't want to compromise the art, but there's got to be a balance there, and maybe what you want to do versus what you can do.
Well, and there's so many like levels to that too, because as an A2, like I assist the A1 in getting the show the way the designers intended it to be. And the designers are great. Our designers, our designer Nevin Steiberg and his associate Jason Crystal are spectacularly brilliant people, and they've thought of everything. And one of the things that I love about them so much is that they do not expect everything to be exactly the way they want it. They expect the show to sound the way they want it to sound. And that has a sliding scale of things, like it has to fit kind of in a certain place. And the first time Nevin ever came out and watched me mix, obviously I'm still learning the show. I don't even know what the actors really sound like yet. I think I'd been mixing it for like 2 weeks maybe, and I'm not the world's strongest mixer on earth. So even that was a little jarring and scary. And then of course to have the big boss come out and say, I want to watch you do the show. I'm like, are you sure? Um, and so I did it in front of him, and he came up to me, I think at intermission, and he said words that I will never forget. And they were, you have to remember that these people were human, like, meaning like George Washington was a person at one time. And when people are watching him on the stage and he's singing his big number, he's got to feel big. He's got to feel bigger than life. And it's got to be the biggest, loudest moment in the show. Absolutely. But when he's not, when he's just talking to Hamilton, he has to feel like a person to them again. And he has to remind them that this man was just a man, and that they too can do great things just like him. You know, they can all, everyone sitting in that audience has the same ability to be just like George Washington. Yep. And the only way you do that is to show them he was just human. He was not a superhero. And that is a line that I love. And every time we get a chance to do it, obviously in theater, touring theater, every house is different. In some houses it's big. You know, you go to an Atlanta Fox and it's, I think, almost 4,000 seats. Yeah. In order to get everyone to experience the show in to fit within the dynamic range of Hamilton, it's going to be a little bigger than it was in Philly. When we were in Philly, it was really intimate, and when we got to do the show, I fell in love with the show there because I got to make it feel human again. And me and Anthony Jones, the A1, we would have like a lot of conversations about like how it felt, and like I would go out and say like, how does it feel to you today? Like, does it feel like this? And yeah, and we both like came to the conclusion that it, like, in a small house, you can make it feel very intimate. And so when we can do that, we do it there. Obviously in a big house, no one's going to assume that we're going to make it feel as intimate as we can in a house like Philly, but we're always striving for that as best we can. We're trying to give people the same experience. Now, that being said, every performer is different. Every performance is different. Every audience is different, you know, but they trust us to sort of fit within the range of Hamilton. When they come out, we get less notes about make this guy 3 dB quieter, take 3 dB less bass out of this, and more like, yeah, it feels good. This song feels a little weak, you know, and they use terms that are more talking about the idea of Hamilton than it is the science of Hamilton. And that I think is hugely important. There was this one time Jason Crystal came out, and I asked him, because I said, in this one scene in the show, because we have a principal reverb channel return that we mix during the show, and an ensemble one. And there's a moment in the end of the show when Jefferson was put into the principal reverb, and we had the principal reverb up kind of a lot. And I was like, he's the only one talking in the principal reverb, and he's in there kind of a bit. And I was like, you know, is it because he's so far back on the stage that he kind of needs to feel a little more reverby? And Jason went, no, probably not. It was probably just a mistake. But you never know, because some of these choices can be, you know, feeling based choices where like they want it to feel like he's farther away, so they add reverb in. And sometimes it's like, no, you just got put in that channel. That's all. That didn't get fixed. So
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, but so those conversations do happen where we get artsy with it, and we say like the feelings that we're feeling, and how this scene is feeling, and how it's not feeling, and how it should be feeling. And then sometimes we talk about the science of it, where we say that this compressor isn't clamping down fast enough, you know. And I think sometimes it's hard to kind of pop off the artsy hat and pop on the science hat and try and dig into the science of why we're hearing things. And so that can be difficult to navigate. But I think for the most part, we do a very good job of knowing when we talk about frequency, we mean the science, and when we talk about feeling, we mean the art, because you can't do one without the other. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when you're wanting to evoke a certain emotion, you've got to know the science behind how to mold it to that, right?
Right. Yeah. And you need to know how to accomplish the art with the science.
That's brilliant. And it's interesting. So your choice to go to LA Sound School pays off in that, right? I imagine that
Right.
would give you a little leg up in that because studio recording is very technical.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Hugely.
that,
Hugely technical, and but you did get the opportunity to like be artsy about it. Like I remember there's always the discussion of, how do you mic a snare drum in, and that's a discussion that recording engineers love to talk about. It's like it's one of my least favorite conversations with anyone about anything is when someone tells me that I'm miking something wrong, and I go like, oh, did you not like the way it sounded? And they go like, no, but you could get more of a this from that. And I go, great. I didn't want more of that. I wanted it just the way I wanted it. When you go to recording school, you have a lot of those conversations
oh
of
yeah,
here's how you mic a snare drum, and then a lot of the other conversations about, well, you're only going to use the room mics for the drums anyways, so why even mic the snare, because that's a very common thing that people do in a lot of recordings that you've heard, a lot of the ones that you've heard that you love. I would dollars to donuts bet that 20% of them, they only used two microphones in the end mix. They only used two microphones in the corner of the room behind the drums,
yeah,
because that's the big feeling, because the room adds a lot of emotion and bigness, like hugeness to the sound. And when going there, I got to learn all the technical of it, the how to use a compressor, how to use an EQ, but also how to talk to people, how to discuss, how to talk with an artist about how they're feeling and how their mix feels. And the one of the teachers there, we were talking one day about how he tackles the red light fever. It's this very common thing that people get when you put them in front of it and you say, great, we're rolling, go ahead whenever you're ready. And they hear the music, they get nervous because they like, this is the take, this is one of the takes. And you go, right, we're about to do 20 of them. I don't know why you're nervous now. Get nervous on the 20th one when the 19 haven't sounded good. And his technique was always, number one is the first take, you pretend like the mic's not even working. Like you're like, we're going to try and set some levels. So you're just going to do a quick take. Don't take it seriously. Don't even warm up. Just go ahead and do one. We're just going to set some levels, and then we'll leave the room for 20 minutes. We'll get you all prepped, and then we'll come back and we'll do it. And then they go, okay, this isn't serious. This is just me. I'm going to have some fun. You mind if I do it weird? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Do it weird if you want to. And they do it, and it's great, and it's a perfect take, and you were rolling, and now you go, great, we're going to do 30 of these, and then we're going to keep the first one because that was the best one. And that's hard. There's this people always rag on auto-tune, because they say, auto-tune, why can't they just sing it right? Why can't they just sing the notes right? And I go, they can, but obviously you're trying to capture a moment that is difficult. And one of the things that you can fix in post is pitch, but you can't add emotion to a performance. So when the emotion of the performance is what you want it to be, you fix the pitch with a plugin. And that is one of the best examples of using the science right. Is you say, we can't make an actor be in pitch. How do we help him be in pitch? We give him better monitors. We put the right thing in the mix so that he has a reference to the pitch when he needs it. And Nevin is huge about monitoring and making sure that the actors have everything they need, because without them, it's a well-lit stage. It's a well-lit, quiet stage. And when they feel like they can do their job, people get the best result, and then they want to come back and see it again. And that's our job. And that's one of those things that in a recording school, they teach you more about how to get a good take out of someone, and what not to say and what not to do, and how to give them anything they might need to do it. I love whenever you see pictures of studios and the tracking room has a lot of carpet in it, but it's usually like these nice or ornamental rugs. And the reason is because you need a lot of sound dampening on the floor. But you could just put in like some ugly rugs in there. Like you could go get some carpet from Carpet Plus and throw it down there. Or you can make it feel warm and feel inviting and feel like a place that you want to do theater. And I feel like or feel like you want a place that you want to sing in. And I feel like theater does that same thing, where if people are, doing a show in a black box theater with a bunch of pipe and drape around them, they're going to have a harder time of feeling like they are in, an 18th century, manner. And when you can create that environment for them, you get this result that is they can transport themselves and therefore transport the audience. And it's the same way with the technology. Cameron McIntosh has this. When we were doing Les Mis, we had to do all of this dressing over all of our speakers, front of house speakers, and we were like, God, so why do we have to do this? This is such a waste. And everyone was so upset that we were having to do this, because it was also the bulk of the weight of these speakers.
Oh yeah.
Of our towers was this set dressing. We were like, this is so dumb, so stupid. I don't know why we're doing this. This is such. And then we saw it and we did it, and we were like, you know what? When you don't see the technology, you start to focus on the people a little bit better. And that's his mentality, is he wants the audience to stop with the line of technology that breaks them off from the actors, and instead have the set pouring into the audience with them.
Man, that's good.
Yeah, and it's from now on, whenever anyone's like, we're going to dress these speakers up, be like, let's do it, because it is going to make the experience better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, back to something you had mentioned earlier. That's one of the reasons that I love theater as an art form, because it's not one dimensional, right? It's not like a painting. That paintings are beautiful, and not to take away from them, but it's visual, right? This one takes painting and takes performance and takes everything, all and brings them into one place, and as if each is a different paint within a painting that we're creating, or a statue, just. And with every one, by adjusting it a little bit, you can completely change the emotion of the room, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And being able to change, like, I always love really great set design that is modular, and the same place is now a new place because we added a new piece, and you don't have to completely change the set around to make it look different. Like those kinds of things in theater are really like the magic of theater that people always talk about. There's this thing that you can't. In Dreamgirls, there's this great sequence where it's I think it's the song "I Am Changing." She goes into the studio, right? And she's wearing like a shirt and a pair of pants, and she starts singing the song, and the spot slowly cuts down to just her face. She has this tearaway shirt. She tears it away. She gives it a little shake. The lights open back up, and she's wearing this beautiful gown.
Yeah.
And people go like, what? They lose their minds. They're like, this is incredible. I'm literally in a different place, and I never took my eyes off it. It's like a magic trick.
Yeah.
And there's no difference. I did my very first tour with Tim Schmidt, which you have had on the show, who you've had on the show. Tim was one of those guys I met, and he was on my first tour. He's the reason I know how to line by line mix. He's the guy who taught me the most about like doing real professional theater. And that tour changed my life in that I got to experience like actual magic in front of people. Like one of the guys, the guy who's the flight choreographer, he does all the flying. He traveled with us, and it was Peter Pan with Kathy Rigby, an incredible performer. She would do it, 8 shows a week. I've been on the one show she took as a sick day, and she was incredible. And when she met Paul Rubin, she like knew he was the guy to do her flying, and he's the best in the country. I don't think you'll ever find anyone better. And he's someone you should have on the show, because he is probably the most brilliant, like, designer of anything is his designs of flight.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the things that man does with wire are incredible, because he has figured, sure, you can lift somebody up with wire, of course you can. That's how wires work. It's all of the ways that he hides the wires is really where he makes his money. He he does an incredible job of it looking brilliant on stage, but he knows exactly where to hook everybody up and not have you tell, how to use one wire for another, how to tell. He like, you know, he helps lighting hide the wires during the show so they don't see it. And when that kind of work is done, it's truly breathtaking. And the best moment in the show is the audience flight, and it happens at the end of the show. It happens at the bows. People come out. Two people come out. They hook up Kathy, and you sort of don't really see it. And then she just flies out over the audience, and she's throwing fairy dust on everyone, and everyone loses their minds because it's like the coolest thing to watch. And, you know, if you know how it's done, it kind of ruins it a little bit. Not ruins it a little bit, but like you feel like, oh, well, that's, but it's just it's a pendulum swing. When you watch it, you'll never be more awestruck. And I know how to do a lot of things in theater. I know a lot about sound. I know a lot about the science of sound. And there's still a feeling. I went and saw a Bon Iver concert, and the kick drum affected me in a way that I've never experienced. And it made me realize, I was like, oh, I have to learn how they do that. Whatever they did to do that, I want to know how to do that, because I want my chest to hurt like that at shows. And it's like a testament to the impact of it. I've seen hundreds of shows. I've seen tons of bands. I've looked everything up, and I still, sitting in that seat at the Fox Theater in Detroit, I like took my breath away. And you know, it's a testament that even someone who's been doing theater his entire life will still hear something or see something and go, wow, that was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way every show that I go to see, there's something, you know, the Miss Saigon, when I went to the tour of that recently, you know, the designer in me was like, I hadn't started this show yet. If I had, I found out I would have known somebody on that tour, and I could have gone back. Next time I'm going to go. But, you know, I'm sitting out there thinking, oh man, I would love to see how they did that. How do they, the copter, you know, first of all, how do they fit all this stuff backstage in that show?
Yeah.
But the chopper, how do they get it in place so quickly? I want to see the mechanics. I want to see how they're lifting it. I want to see the hydraulics, all of that. And yeah, it's just, but in the moment as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, that's a chopper. That's cool. They're going to get away, right? But then later the knowledge kicks in. But yeah, and that's what makes you guys stars. It is. That's because the actors are great. Right? They could, as a performer myself, and I teach my students, you give me a stage that's black and dark and enough light to be seen, and I can do a show. But when you surround it with a well-designed set and a well-designed sound and well-designed light, that none of them detract, but they all mold together, it just takes it that much farther. And the audience, because then they have to use less imagination, and so they can dig into the meat of the performance even more. Right. And that's the beauty. That's why everybody involved in the process is a star, even though they don't all get to take curtain calls. We all deserve it. Absolutely.
As long as we get our donuts during load-in, that's fine.
I'm there with you, unfortunately. Yeah, I've had to give up donuts recently. The doctor said, I don't get it.
It's the worst.
It is the worst. The worst. When I've decided I've lived long enough on this earth, it will be death by donut. I've decided. So
that's a great way to go.
Well, man, we are running short on time here, but there's still a couple things I want to get in. What an incredible conversation so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
But there, you know, and we've already heard it from you, but I've got to stick to my process, and that is this. I'd love to hear you talk about, if you could, you know, put everything into a cauldron and swirl it around and pour it out into a pill, and that pill is the passion pill for Mark Rivet, right? I take this, and this is what fills me with a passion and gets me up in the morning, as opposed to, you know, thinking about, man, if I was a lawyer every day, I would never want to get up. But what is it about this that makes you want to get up? What is it that fills you with that passion?
I think definitely it is like the people you meet in theater. When you're forced to go to a new place every week, you meet people that are from different walks of life, different socioeconomic backgrounds, you know, and you're all there to do the same thing. You're all there to do the play that you're putting on. You learn. I've learned so much about America and like why this is the greatest place to be. We have our problems. We have a lot of problems, but I've been everywhere, and I can tell you, everywhere has people that are brilliant artists who want to show people a world that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. And I love that we all get to work together to do that. The thing that I love about theater is the collaboration. I love that it is not a thing you can do by yourself. You can do a lot of things. You can build a house by yourself. It'll be difficult, but you can. But that house will never be as good as if you build it with friends and build it with craftsmen who know more about something than you do. And that is theater, is these craftsmen that you meet. And I've met amazing artists who have, actors who have changed me as an artist, and I've changed what I found was what I thought was important.
Right.
I've met, designers like Nevin Steinberg who have changed the way I will think about theater forever. And I've met, people I will always call because I have a problem and they know the solution to, and now I have their phone number. And that's the thing about theater, that if you get into it, you will quickly find out you can't do it alone. You can't do theater by yourself. And so start making friends. When I first moved to New York, all through school, people would say this: it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And that is true to the nth degree in theater. I've never gotten a job because of my resume. I've always gotten a job because I knew someone. I got this job because I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone. I can trace me getting here to a phone call I made to get on my very first tour. And that is the connection that's always been in between is people, and I'm very good at what I do. And the reason that I am where I am is because I'm nice enough for people to let me do it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And we hear that over and over. And it is absolutely true. And, that's what I admonish all of our listeners. You can be great at what you do, but if you're not willing to work with people well, you're going to be doing it alone, or you're not going to be doing it at all. And take the advice of all of these brilliant people on the Wall of Wisdom and be nice. And not just if you're in theater. I would say that should carry over into everything. But particularly in this thing that we love. And you found my secret. The real reason I'm doing this show, Mark, is so that I can get to know some really great people, because I don't have a job right now. And I'm hoping someday, I'll know enough people that maybe I can work again. No, I'm doing great, but I am a much better person for doing this show because of, just the wonderful friendships that I've made and networking. And that's the beauty of it too, right? Here you are on top level, Hamilton. Here I am in Ada, Oklahoma Community Theater. And don't get me wrong, Act 2 in Ada, Oklahoma, we have some great performers, but we're shoestring budget. We've lost our theater. Right now, we don't even have a place to perform, and we're looking for a storefront where we can build a stage and do something. But it doesn't matter. You and I can connect quickly and well because of the family of theater, right? It can walk in, and that's the beauty of touring, right? You can walk in and work, do a load in that can be a stressful situation and dangerous with a bunch of overhires, locals, incredible technicians that you've never met before, but instantly each other well enough to be able to do what needs to be done. And that
speak the same language.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that language is universal. And I did a show in Japan, did Dreamgirls in Japan. And the way we spoke was the same. It was universal. Every time we walked into that theater, it was a really interesting thing that I found out. In Japan, you say good morning no matter what time of day, but only in theater. And I say good morning every time I walk in to the first person I see in theater, no matter 6 p.m. And it's universal. It's the start of our day.
That's awesome. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's awesome. Cool, cool, cool. And sometimes it is morning, but that's all
Sometimes it is morning.
right. Too early in the morning, but as long as you got those donuts, you're good to go.
Exactly.
Well, it is time for we mentioned the Wall of Wisdom, and I am looking forward to hearing the nugget because you've already dropped tons of wisdom on us. You've already dropped tons of wisdom. So it is your turn, Mark Rivet, to tell me a statement that will fit on a piece of gaff tape, and I will find a place to put it up there, even though it's getting rather full. Casecraft is going to build us a new Wall of Wisdom. I just found out. So thank you, Case. I'm excited about that because we need it. Because we've got so many more people we want to get their wisdom. But right now, you're the star of the day, Mark Rivet. We want your wisdom. So I've got my paint pen ready. I got my gaff tape ready. What is your nugget of wisdom for the Wall of Wisdom?
My wisdom would be, and I say this often enough that a guy named Joel Boltice has it written on a hat he wears to load-ins. And it's, I was born a stagehand, not an audio guy. Meaning I was born to do the work in theater. I wasn't born to be a sound guy. It's not all I focus on because specialization is for insects. I was born to put on a show, and whatever that means, that's what I'll do.
That is awesome. Look, I fit it. Boom. Here. Right there on that piece of gaff. And it's going to go on the Wall of Wisdom. I was born a stagehand, not an audio guy. And I think I mentioned this should be a t-shirt. That should be. And I think, I'm thinking about doing that. You guys, listeners, my email address is in the description. Send me if you think this is a good idea and you would buy one. Maybe I should do a line of t-shirts around the Wall of Wisdom, right? So there can be a t-shirt for every guest, and you can get the
there you go, yeah.
Whole collection if you want, or just one.
Be like a light competition to see who gets the most.
Oh, that's a great one. That's it. Yeah, and we could put like your face on the front and on the back.
Exactly. I'm sure Brian Ronan's will win, but
Oh, well, we'll see. I don't know. It's there's some good ones out there, right? There's some, and this, sir, has been an incredible episode, thanks to you. And I said that this was the last thing, but there's one more thing that we do, and it's one of my favorite things, and it's this. The fact is that you, sir, do not get to take a curtain call, right? And so we're going to change that today. So, but you have to, since it's just me here with you, you have to kind of use that whole suspension of disbelief and imagine, if you will, that I am millions around the globe. And this is your curtain call. You're standing center stage, but don't shake. Don't forget the stage fright. You don't have no lines to remember. It's just time to bow. So Mark Rivet, this is your curtain call. Take my applause and multiply it by 1,000,000, sir. This is for you. Yay. Woo! There you go. Because you truly are a star. And we would not be able to enjoy the magic that we enjoy if it weren't for you and all your brothers and sisters in the stagehand world. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for being on our show today.
Thanks, Jamie.
You bet, man. And I'm not kidding. That I'm never disappointed. Every guest we've had, everyone is different, right? Everybody's story is different, but everybody's story is valuable. And, as students out there, adults, parents, teachers, random Broadway fans who like our show, there's all kinds of people that watch. And if you're watching this, take that to heart, do your art, whatever it is, whether you are like Mark and you get on the stage and you shake and you can't remember a line, that's okay, because he is just as much as a performer hiding in the shadows backstage, running, the audio on deck as any of the stars of Hamilton are. And his art is no less valuable than theirs and no less important to the show. And the same is true for you. And that's whether it's a professional on Hamilton or it's like I am, community theater, or in your high school or wherever you are. It doesn't matter, because you can affect lives and people. And right now, our society needs to be affected. And we have the ability to affect people in ways that no one else does. And it needs to happen on every level. So don't shy away from it. Love your art and always do it with excellence, because you can, every level. So that's my sermon for the day. We'll pass a hat and take up an offering. here in the Church of Theater. But yeah. Well, it's been another one, and we couldn't do it without you guys joining us. So thank you for being a part, as always. And man, my email's down here. If you have a question for Mark, shoot that to me, and I'll forward it to him. If he wants to give me permission to share his email, then we'll do that.
Yeah.
But I will always get those to him. And that's it. That's our episode for today. Look forward to talking to you next time. Got a ton more guests coming up, so check with us every week, and we'll continue to do this thing and meet here in the camper until we move to my new camper. Ooh, a little teaser. It's a new, older camper. Yeah, it's older. It's less shape, but my wife wants this one back. I don't get it. Love you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next time right here on the Hidden Stars of Theater. Bye-bye.